Hello, my name is Jim and welcome to
Kilimanjaro.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the Milwaukee M12 Fuel 3-inch cutoff tool. So this is the model 2522-XC21. So it's a kit that comes with a whole bunch of things that you all see here. It comes with your standard M12 battery charger. This is just the M12 charger, it's not the nicer one that has the M18 also on it. It comes with a little tote bag here to keep all this stuff together. I tend to prefer the hard cases, but at least it has something so you don't lose track of everything. Comes with a useless manual, a very generic 3/16 inch hex key to change the blades on this. I'm surprised it's 3/16. I would have expected that to be a metric size. It comes with 3 different blades here. You get a diamond impregnated blade for cutting tile, you get a metal blade for cutting iron, and you get this kind of carbide impregnated blade that's good for cutting plastic, drywall, and also fiber cement board. This kit comes with one 4 amp hour XC 12 volt battery, and it also comes with this dust shoe. The dust shoe turns out to be pretty important, particularly for this blade and this blade. This tool spins extremely quickly and it throws up a huge amount of dust and makes quite a bit of a mess. So it's one of the problems that I found with this tool. So getting into that, so I've had this tool for about 2 years now, and the reason it's taken me so long to do a review of it is that I just haven't found a use for it. It can do all these things, but in general, it doesn't do them as well as some other tools. So it uses these kind of small discs. This one here, plastic drywall, not super useful. I don't need to cut plastic all that often. If you do, usually a pair of scissors or shears or something will work a little bit easier. And drywall, as this dust shoe kind of pretends, and I'll show you this in a minute, it makes a huge mess when you try to cut drywall with it. The tile attachment, it says it can be used wet or dry. There's a little water droplet symbol on there. But trying to use this wet, there's no way to drip water onto it. You have to sit there with a squirt bottle letting it down as it's running or something. If you don't do that, it kicks up a huge amount of dust. Not something you want to do indoors. Probably even outdoors you want to wear a mask if you're doing that. So I'm going to show you these different blades here in the order of kind of least messy to most messy. So I'm going to start off with the metal cutting one here. That tends to just throw up sparks, makes a little bit of grinding dust. Not too big a deal. Now, because of course it's throwing hot sparks everywhere, I'm not going to use the dust shoe on it. I don't know that this is really rated for having sparks hitting it all the time, but I certainly don't want those going up a vacuum or anything like that. So we'll use that dry. So I'm going to change the blade here. I'll show you how to do that. It's real simple. There's a little button that you push here, and then you just use this. And now this is a reverse thread, a left-hand thread screw, which is a little bit surprising. Usually you'll see a left-hand thread screw on a tool like this because the blade is spinning in one direction and it wants it when it starts up to tighten the screw, not loosen the screw, so that it doesn't come loose. However, this tool, one of the big things they advertise about it is that it can reverse from forward to reverse. So either way they did it, it's going to, it would have the possibility of coming loose, and so why wouldn't you just use a standard fastener on it that would make it easier to change blades. Whenever I go to change it, it's not clearly marked, and I always try to loosen it as if it was a right-hand thread first before remembering that it's a left-hand thread. So a little bit irritating there. So just unscrew it. There's a little kind of washer there. Blade slides off. Put that off to the side here, and then we can put the other blade on. So these are your typical kind of cutoff discs that you might find on a grinder or something. They do wear down. It's one of the problems with this because it's a 3-inch size. It's kind of a unique size, and they're not available as much as, say, discs for a grinder that you can find everywhere. So they do have them at Home Depot, so it's not too big a deal. I didn't see any at Lowe's the last time I was there, but usually there's a Home Depot around, so it's not the end of the world or anything. They do wear off pretty quickly. This one isn't brand new. It's actually the one that came with it, so it's a little bit worn down, so it won't be as good as a brand new one, but kind of average one. So I'm going to put on my safety glasses here and also put on some hearing protection because this thing is very loud, particularly when it's cutting something that vibrates a lot, like these metal tubes. So we'll cut through. Here I've got, it's a piece of transition. It's just a little thin metal sheet that these usually come kind of oversized, so you need to cut them down to the size of your doorway. So we'll cut that down. We've got a piece of just 3/16 steel right here, and also a piece of electrical conduit. So I'm just going to cut these all through, and then I'll talk about kind of how it works and what I think about that. Okay, so you can see that it did cut all through those things. It did struggle a bit with the 3/16 inch bar, so certainly not the ideal tool for cutting through metal that thick. Cut through this pretty easily, and you know, one of the things they show this for is cutting like sheet metal ducts, like you know, I have running through the basement here. That'd be pretty easy, but of course, you know, you can usually use those with a tin snip without needing to worry about batteries or making a huge racket, needing both eye protection and ear protection, and probably you should have been wearing a dust mask with that too. You can see it throws up a bunch of sparks, and these discs do wear out pretty quickly. So it'll do all of these things, but I think it's far from ideal for every one of those. One of the things that they, you know, as I mentioned, it can switch from forward to reverse here. You can also adjust this kind of guard here to try to prevent the sparks from hitting you. It's nice, but usually, you know, it's not super convenient that it can switch from forward to reverse. Usually when I'm using a grinder to cut stuff, you can always just flip it around to get it to the other side. So I'm going to switch over to one of the other bits. I've got the blade changed out here for this diamond impregnated blade here that's meant for cutting tile. Interestingly, the other two blades say you can use them in either direction, which is supposed to be one of the big features of this. However, this diamond blade only says it should be used in forward. I'm not sure why that would be. I don't see any reason why you couldn't also use this in reverse, but it does say that on the blade, which I thought was a little interesting. So I'm going to cut this piece of tile here, which I've been using for some welding, if you were wondering what those little marks are on it. Because of the dust that this is going to kick up, I've got my dust mask. I've also got hearing protection and eye protection on for all this. So let's get started with this. Gave it a few minutes for the dust to settle, and now we're back, and you can see that, yeah, it cuts tile. This is a pretty hard tile. It didn't do the greatest job. It cuts reasonably quickly, but it didn't leave a particularly nice edge. You know, it's a little chipped out and everything here. It's possible with some more practice, and if you were a little slower about it, you could do a better job with that. So as you can see, though, it did kick up a huge amount of dust. So like you saw, if you're using this side, you probably want to be using a dust mask. It's also super loud, so you probably want to be having ear protection and, of course, eye protection. So now I'll show you this dust shoe that it comes with. So this shoe can be used two different ways, either with a vacuum, which I've got here, or there's a little cap on here, and that just kind of contains the dust in here. So I'll show it with the vacuum. One thing though, as the blade is spinning in here, you really want it to be spinning and throwing the dust up towards the vacuum, which means that you've got to have it going in reverse, which of course is not how it says to use this particular blade. So maybe they're not expecting you to use this with this blade. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we're going to run it in reverse and try it that way with the vacuum hooked up. So I'll show you how that works. So this is real easy to put on here. You have to have it all the way up, which is a little irritating, but you put it all the way up, you loosen this with a screw, and then you just slide this in here, and it just clips in. There's a little button here, and it just hangs on the guard there. So pretty easy to get on there. Now you can lower it all the way down, and then we'll hook up our vacuum. I'll put on all my PPE, and we can get started cutting this tile with this here. Okay, so it does cut tile, no problem. And as you can see, it's a lot less dusty in here. I probably didn't even need the dust mask on. So that does work pretty well. Like I said, you do have to run the blade in reverse. And the other thing you may have noticed there is it was starting to bog down, particularly if you're not real careful and you get not a straight cut. It will start to bog down the motor. So this battery, probably can't see it, but it has 2 dots left on the charge, so it is not completely charged. And this is the 4.0 battery that came with the kit. So it will cut tile. I don't know that it's particularly good at it. It cuts it reasonably quickly for such a small blade, but still not the fastest way to do it. Doesn't leave the nicest edge and can make a huge mess. I've switched out the blade here for this drywall plastic and fiber cement blade. So I'm going to show you first on the drywall. Now, I'm only going to use this with the dust shoe. This makes a tremendous amount of mess without the dust shoe, and I don't want the whole shop to be filled with drywall dust for the next hour. I also don't know why you would ever do that indoors, and you don't usually cut drywall outdoors, so I'm only going to be using this with the dust shoe, with the vacuum. Also, I'm not going to make a straight cut here. I don't know why you would ever not just use a knife if you got a straight cut. Now, if you've got a box in the center here, maybe this would be a good tool to use. Let's find out, and we'll see how it goes here. So this is some kind of thick drywall. So this blade just barely fits through it. So we're going to see how well it cuts and how easy it is to do. It does cut very quickly through drywall, as you can see there. And you can see with the 5/8 inch drywall, it really didn't make very much dust. The problem with that is that it doesn't cut all the way through 5/8 inch drywall. So I switched over to a piece of 3/8 inch drywall, which it cut through very nicely, cut through very quickly, and as you can see, made a giant mess. I had to give this about 20 minutes for all the dust to settle in here, and it is everywhere in the shop. So even if you had this up on a wall, you could see that it was not far from the back surface here. So it may have caught all the stuff that would shoot directly out on the dust shoe, but even if it's up against the wall, it's going to shoot it all through up the cavity and blow right back out, and it's going to make a huge mess. So anyway, you cut drywall tends to make a mess, but I think this makes more mess than any other method. It's also, I just quickly did this, so I overshot all the lines, but it would be pretty difficult to stop at just the right size for an outlet box. Going to be much easier to use a different method to cut a piece of drywall. So I'm going to clean this up, and then I'll go down to the last tests for some plastic. I've still got the same blade on here, and I'm going to show you how this cuts through ABS plastic. So this actually doesn't make too much noise, and the dust is more like chips, so I'm not going to have the dust hood on there. I'm just going to have my eye protection on. It cuts through this very nicely and very quickly. It also doesn't make a lot of dust, as I mentioned. It more makes these little clumps of plastic that are almost like little chips of plastic. So that works very nicely. It does smell a little bit, so I'm not sure if it's burning it a little. That's probably not the greatest to breathe, but it's not too bad. Problem is, I don't really know how often you'd want to be actually cutting plastic like this, that you'd want to get a tool that is good at it. So maybe if you had some specialized thing where you are cutting plastic like this all the time, maybe that'd work out pretty well. I wouldn't use it for cutting clear sheets of plastic. I think it would chip out too much. So I don't really think it's the best case for that. Conclusion time. Should you actually go out and buy one of these? I would not recommend it. I've had this for about 2 years and I almost never use it. These are the 3 original blades that it came with. The metal one is the only one that's gotten even a little bit of use. I wouldn't ever use this to cut tile or drywall. It just makes too much of a mess. It's too loud. It's too noisy. Cutting metal, it does work, but in almost any situation, using a grinder with a cutoff disc is going to be better. The handle, little more control maybe on cutting some metal. Maybe if you want to cut sheet metal, this is pretty small. It's a lot smaller than a grinder, but the blades are a lot harder to find, and it doesn't really seem to do anything better than a cutoff disc on a grinder. So this kit is $230, so it's not exactly cheap. The bare tool is $110. It's not something you just want to get for 1 or 2 uses. There may be some cases that it works really well for. I don't know what those would be. If you happen to know one and you really like it for something, leave a comment down below. Other than that, I would say, I wouldn't recommend getting one of these. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.